How does the state establish a social norm of tax compliance? And what are the effects of such efforts on citizens' participation in both the state and larger society? My name is Ben Krause. I'm a PhD candidate at UC Berkeley's ARE on the job market this year, and I'd like to share with you a taste of my research that I'm calling Taxation Toward Representation: Public Goods, Tax Collection, Social Norms, and Democratic Accountability. Now in this, my job market paper, I contribute to our understanding of how these various elements relate to each other by conducting a randomized control trial at scale and over several years across one of the largest cities in Haiti. This research builds on my years of work in these sorts of settings and months of qualitative data collection in the study city itself. I then extended a standard model of tax evasion to better incorporate the sorts of incentives faced in a weak state with near zero tax compliance. To test the resulting series of empirical predictions, I partnered with the Mayor's Office and National Tax Authority to cross-randomize the provision of public goods, tax collection effort, and the social exposure of tax compliance. Specifically, for public goods, I assisted the mayor in randomizing the routes taken by a new fleet of trash trucks donated to the city for the purposes of beginning door-to-door removal services in the neighborhoods. For tax collection effort, I assisted the mayor in randomizing to whom tax agents delivered invoices for property taxes, and to further identify mechanisms within the 15,000 households assigned to receive tax invoices, I assisted the mayor in further randomizing the framing with different nudges. Finally, for social exposure of tax compliance, one version of the tax invoice included a commitment that if they paid their property taxes, that the mayor's office would return and acknowledge this contribution by affixing a sticker to their front door, much like what one might see on a license plate or car window. So, what's happened? Well, as you can see in the first 6 columns here of Table 1, providing public goods increases tax payments on the intensive margin over both the first fiscal year as well as over the full 18 months of administrative data reported thus far. Columns 7 and 8 indicate public goods also increase tax compliance on the extensive margin. However, attempting to collect taxes in this setting has been counterproductive. To disentangle this negative effect, here in Table 2, I leverage the individual randomization of invoice frames. From this first column and across, we can see that the negative effect can be overcome by motivating payment in the ways tested, with columns 4 and 5 suggesting that communitarian motivations, like nationalism or cultural norms of cooperation, may be more effective in this setting than individualistic frames highlighting personal costs or benefits. The importance of social norms can also be seen in columns 3, 5, and 7. I interpret the coefficient on social exposure here as providing evidence for a mechanism hypothesized in my model and known in psychology as antisocial punishment, which points to the possibility of what I would call a norm trap. The potential upside is also seen in these columns, with the point estimates for the interaction of public goods and social exposure as evidence of receding antisocial punishment and potentially, especially in the longer run, a switch in sign indicating a form of pro-social signaling. Thus, the provision of public goods may initiate a virtuous cycle that provides a pathway out of the potential norm trap. Now, turning to the effects of these efforts on other forms of political participation, the first 3 columns of Table 3 are findings from my citywide graffiti census. Though not affecting the overall prevalence of graffiti, tax collection effort increased political graffiti and decreased positive political messages, but when paired with the public goods provision, the overall results were less political graffiti, and what was there was more positive in nature, stuff like "Long live the mayor." Throughout this study, the country has also had a series of significant nationwide anti-corruption protests, often characterized by the construction of barricades by neighbors. In columns 4 to 7, I show that while public goods provision reduced this sort of citizen engagement, tax collection effort increases the most severe forms of barrier construction. So in summary, public goods increase tax payments, tax collection efforts decrease payments unless effectively framed, antisocial punishment is operative and may create a norm trap, which public goods provision may overcome, and these tax mobilization efforts affect citizens' political and social engagement more broadly, with tax collection leading to increased forms of political speech and protest. And looking forward, will this increased political engagement caused by taxation lead to greater democratic accountability? Stay tuned.